Coming to Pennsylvania on a pleasant summer day in 1750, a ship carrying 400 Germans arrived at the docks in Philadelphia. These newcomers were about to begin their new lives in a new place. Even 100 years earlier, the arrival of 400 immigrants was not big news. Back then, many people wanted to start a new life in an English colony. At the time, there were 5 English colonies in North America. By 1750, there were 13 English colonies on the east coast of what became the United States. All of them were strong and growing. Almost every week, a ship arrived with more immigrants. The population of the colonies had already passed 1 million and was quickly climbing toward 2 million. Settlements had spread from the Atlantic Ocean to as far west as the Appalachian Mountains. Why had so many people come to the British colonies in North America? Why were so many still coming in 1750? The answer is simply opportunity. The opportunity to own land of their own. The opportunity to work in the growing towns and cities. The opportunity to worship as they pleased. The opportunity to escape the past and start a new life. Who were these colonists? Where were they from? They were mainly ordinary people, farmers, and people from small towns. Most colonists were from England, but a large number almost a third came from Germany. Many others came from Scotland, Ireland, Wales, Sweden, and the Netherlands. Not all of those who migrated to the colonies traveled willingly. About 1 person in 5 was enslaved, having been forcefully removed from his or her home in Africa. Most eventually found themselves in, but there were enslaved people in the North too. Almost none of the people who came from Africa were free. Life in the colonies. More than 9 out of 10 colonial families lived on farms. They farmed their land by themselves. Every member of the family had a job to do. As a result, they produced nearly everything they needed to survive. They raised their own food. They made their own clothes and their own tools. They made their own furniture. Most of them even built the houses that they lived in. When the weather and the harvest were good, farmers sometimes had enough food left over to sell. In the mid-1700s, there were still only 4 or 5 cities in all of the colonies, and just a handful of towns. These cities were small by today's standards, but they were growing quickly. In just a few short years, Philadelphia would become the second largest city in the whole British Empire, next to London, England. What sparked this growth of towns and cities? Trade within the colonies and with other countries was the driving factor. From the docks of the cities on the East Coast, merchants sent lumber, fur, salted fish, flour, rice, indigo, and tobacco to many parts of the world. To those docks, ships returned with glass paint, tea, wine, and other goods. The co-trade also meant jobs. Men loaded and unloaded ships. They built boats. They made sails, rope, and barrels for shipping goods. The cities and towns offered other kinds of work too. Men, and some women, ran stores and shops. Skilled workers baked bread and made pots and pans. Others printed newspapers or made fine shoes and clothes for other city dwellers. Staying apart and coming together. When immigrants arrived in the colonies, they preferred to settle near people who were from the same country. This made them feel more comfortable in a strange new land. They could speak their own language and follow their own traditional ways of life. They wore the same kinds of clothing they had worn in their homeland and built the same kinds of houses. In time, however, something interesting and important happened. Immigrant groups began to borrow ideas and customs from each other. For example, consider the log cabin. Swedes had built log cabins in their homeland. In the colonies, they found plenty of trees that could be used to build homes. A log cabin was easy to build. 2 strong settlers with axes could build one in a couple of weeks. Other groups came to North America with their own ideas of how to build a house. When they saw the log cabins built by Swedish settlers, they realized that these homes were perfect for life on the frontier. Soon, settlers from many different countries built log cabins like the ones built by the Swedes. This borrowing of ideas and customs among immigrant groups even changed the way colonists spoke. Most colonists spoke English, but English speakers began to borrow words from the other languages spoken in the colonies. They borrowed the words noodle and pretzel from German. They borrowed the words waffle, cookie, and sleigh from Dutch. The words pecan, moccasin, skunk, and squash came from Native American languages. Words such as yams, banjo, and tote came from African languages. The use of words borrowed from other languages created a new form of English that would eventually be called American English. Little by little, this new American English became the language of the children and grandchildren of immigrants from other lands. By the 1750s, the colonists were also being brought together by improved roads. These roads were not very good compared to our own. They were narrow, often muddy, and filled with tree stumps. Still, they were better than the roads of 50 or 100 years earlier. These roads made it easier to travel through the colonies. Easier travel led to increased trade among the colonies. Better roads also improved communications by speeding up the exchange of information. In the mid-1750s, mail delivery between Philadelphia and Boston increased to once a week instead of every 2 weeks. That meant that newspapers printed in the cities could be delivered to colonists in the countryside more easily. Colonists could now read the same news and stay informed about the same things. In all these ways, colonists of many different backgrounds were starting to come together. They were just beginning, of course, to have more things in common. This coming together soon became very important.